50 graphic designers have 3.5 hours to come up with 2 logo alternatives for their clients, hence 100 designs.
I believe the logo of a company is very important. It's your identity. It speaks volumes about you. It speaks a lot about what you stand for, what your ethos are.
You're only living once, so make the most of every opportunity that comes your way.
I learned to participate rather than just facilitate.
If I had the chance to talk to a younger me, I would say, just relax. It's fine. You do it.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Apologies for the slight delay in us starting. As you will have it, technology isn't always perfect, but welcome everybody to the very first webinar. This particular webinar is targeted at SME owners and people that participated in the 100 design competition that we launched just towards the end of March, before the entire world went different, is the way I'll put it. Okay, so you're in for a real treat today. We have with us some pretty incredible thinkers, speakers, business professionals, business leaders, and we're going to be learning a lot from each of them. So Bukayo, I'll hand over the mic to you.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. Coming. So I am Bukayo, and I will be your host or your producer today for this live webinar. So if you have any questions, please ask. We kind of have no ground rules, really. We'd love it to be as engaging as possible, so we invite everyone to ask questions. The only thing we would ask is
Bukayo is frozen for a little bit there. As you can see, we're trying to do this across multiple locations. Yes, you're back now. You're back now.
Okay, cool. I think, yes, sir. I think I lost the server. That would happen again. So I'll just quickly run through our panelists and who we have on the call today. As Daya said, this is going to be a treat, and hopefully, fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong in terms of connectivity. And we'll also have Onyinye, General Manager, Enterprise Marketing, MTN. We'll also have Olayinka Ijabiyi, who's the Head of Digital Marketing at First Bank Nigeria. Tiliwa Adebajo, who is the Founder and CEO of CFG Advisory. Kamau, who is the African Marketing Manager of Oracle. Clara Ogunsemi, who is the CEO of Latitude Advanced Solutions. So all those people will be in our first panel. Our second panel will include Aduke Atiba, who's the Executive Director of Landover and Overland Airways. Alakija, who is the founder of 5 Cowries. Nnenna Onyewuchi, who is the co-founder, head of strategy, Yellow Brick Road. Remi Dada, who's the founder and CEO of Space Finish. Lola Masha, who's the executive director of Babban Gona Services. Sola Babatunde, who is the founder of C. And of course, our host, who you've already met, would be our very own Dayo Elegbe, who's the CEO of Sponge Limited. So everybody, you're really in for a treat. Please keep the questions coming as we go along. And hopefully we have no technical glitches, but if we do, we would keep the show going for you. So handing it over back to Dayo. Thank you very much, everyone.
So much, Bukayo. You're doing a fantastic job. So just a real big correction there. So Yinka is not just the head, he's not the head of digital marketing at First Bank. He's actually the head of brands and stakeholder management. So Yinka is a very, very big man who So we apologize for that slight glitch. But obviously, we go back many, many years. Yinka is not only a good friend, but also, I would say, one of the people who's really pioneered. I know you started your career in, you may not have started, but you certainly featured very prominently in telecommunications. You worked with MTN. You certainly worked at what was AT Salat, which is now 9 Mobile. And now you're obviously in this manifestation, you're now in banking and innovating in banking as well. So thank you so much for being with us, Yinka. Real pleasure. Okay. So I thought I had to really make that correction, but we'll move on quite swiftly. So as we mentioned today, you know, the world has changed. The world has changed quite remarkably since the last time we certainly met at the conference that launched all of this. And we felt that it would be a fantastic opportunity to gather not just the speakers who were there when we launched in March, but also some new speakers and get their view on what is being touted as the new normal, okay? And I think what I'll do is I'll start with you, Yinka, by just basically asking, you know, what should brands be doing now to innovate and connect with their customers? What should they be doing now?
Thanks a lot, Dayo, and welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely holiday here in Nigeria with the rains and stuff, so not too hot. But thank you very much for having me once again. So from my point of view, you know, at this time, this is a connecting time, you know, for brands. This is the time when brands must find that connecting opportunity with their customers, with the larger public, with everybody as much as possible. And because we are in an unprecedented time, we haven't seen this before. You know, there are people who live through other flus or other pandemics in the past, you know, but we haven't seen this in our generation. And to be living in a time like this with the technology and everything at our beck and call, it's unprecedented, you know, that people can't literally come together, you know, we haven't had this, you know, in a very long time. So therefore, what brands must do is they must innovate to survive. You know, it's pretty critical that brands must find new ways of connecting. Now, we've lived in a world that has seen us being, you know, how many years now, you know, of doing things the almost like the same way. Yes, there have been innovations, there have been things that have come, you know, but in the light of the digital revolution, this is the next revolution, you know, and for us, it's a connecting revolution, a space where brands must find ways of doing things differently, of connecting with their customers differently. All of the marketing that we had all known to do, all the products that were brought to market, everything we had done, you know, was like the old normal. Now we have a new normal, you know, staring us in the face. And it's important, you know, that brands find that new soft spot with their customers. We must find ways, you know, bringing things to life afresh, and start pivoting very quickly. You know, there are some brands who are already doing it, who are seeing the opportunity and clearly grabbing it. You know, who are saying, look, yes, we were able to do this before, you know, but now that we're in a new normal, this is what we must now do. And they're not just saying it, they're actually doing it. You know, brands are taking control, and that's what all brands must do. You must innovate right now to survive.
Great. I mean, that's
a way to picture this, you know, as we go forward. I'm sorry that as we go forward, that's the new normal. Our new normal then becomes how do we think on our feet as brands, as businesses, in order to survive. Thank you very much.
That point specifically, in terms of, you know, how, so what sort of examples have you come across in terms of brands that have properly identified or understood that they are living in new times? You know, how have you sort of, do you have any examples you can quickly shed light on?
Well, you know, I'll start with one that's very close to home, you know, also First Bank, you know, where I work now. And part of what we've done is, you know, we've focused our communication clearly on customers, you know, and the products and services we have, you know, that are originally, created, you know, for the digital customer. Look, everything goes online now. If you don't have those products, that speak to customers end to end, where we are pushing products now and services that do not require you going to the branch. So purely from a business point of view, we had been ready, at First Bank. But there are other businesses who are doing even differently. So if you look at some of the businesses, even here in Nigeria, and abroad, so for instance, I think the fashion retailer, the luxury fashion retailer, I think is Louis Vuitton, who are then immediately they were the very first, to pivot, and start turning their factories into to doing differently. First of all, creating some luxury face masks, and also creating sanitizers, using things that they already have as well, in this. But that's global. But look at locally as well. There are companies, there are fashion retailers who have done exactly the same, who have taken what they had currently, and have simply then, turned them into what we need now. When you connect with customers like that, you are in for a great ride. A cool hotel, I think I've also really, really taken the bull by the horn. Their businesses affected, by the fact that hotels were simply, had been shut down, and they weren't essential services, and they were identified as hotspots, for spread of COVID, because people gather at places like that. Well, what did they do? They started doing takeouts, so yes, you could order your food and have it delivered to you wherever you were. They also started, they opened up their laundry, for people from anywhere. You could send in your laundry, they could pick up your laundry and deliver it back to you. Things like that, using what they currently have, ensuring that, well, their businesses haven't stayed stagnant. They are not waiting, sitting on their arms, on their hands, and hoping that all of this goes away quickly or soon. So those are some of the businesses. Digital and online businesses also are realizing that they are needing to pivot and do things differently, from the way that they had done them in the past. I was looking at the numbers this morning, and I realized that even Google, had its price, had its revenue affected, by this. And to be honest, I would have thought that where one of the areas where you would see an uplift, would be in digital marketing and people spending more online. But apparently, Google's revenues were affected by, I think, a point basis of about 7 or 8% down from same quarter last year. So that's
absolutely
significant.
It's very humbling to discover that even the mighty Google can be affected by the new normal. So great. Now, obviously, you will all have noticed that we've been joined now by Foluso Phillips, who's joined us on the call. And really, to be honest with you, we need to kick off this properly by giving him an opportunity to really speak to us. I know we had a little bit of technical issues with regard to getting him on board, but now that he's on board, we're super excited that he's on board. And I think, we talked a little bit, FOP, about, we've talked a little bit about, Yinka has talked a little bit about the new normal and how brands need to sort of really pivot quite quickly and intelligently to adapt to the new working environment and the new business environment. But can we hear from you? Can you share some of your thoughts in terms of how you see this new environment? I know that I've certainly benefited a lot in the past not in the past and future and present from your wise words and your mentoring. But can you share to all of us and the wider community logged on now, your thoughts about the current environment we're living in and doing business in, and how can we basically not just survive this, but how can we thrive within it?
Yeah, thanks, and hi everybody. Sorry about the little technical hiccup we had. We did rehearse this, didn't we, Dayo? But
we did rehearse it, but unfortunately, things always go well.
Yeah, what I tell people, and I just listened to the last speaker and talk about the big corporates and the big corporations that have the financial strength and the financial muscle to change very, very quickly their sort of business proposition for now. But I'm always a lot more concerned about the smaller companies that are sort of been caught literally on a hop and are struggling to. Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dio? You can hear me, okay. So
Yeah, go.
yeah, okay. So I was just saying that, look, maybe we want to try and see how I'll share my thoughts a bit, and amongst other things that I was going to share in my introductory remarks. First of all, I think it's a great time to be alive, as funny as it might sound, in the sense that I think it's a kind of an ironic privilege to actually be in the center, the heat and the heart of such a huge transformation that's taking place globally. You know, normally when we look at the way things change, transition is always gradual, and we look at trends and we observe trends and we try and anticipate these trends and prepare for them. But all of a sudden, we all wake up one morning and literally we've leapfrogged into a future that we really just don't understand. So there's a lot of fear about this. There's a lot of uncertainty, great concern. But the bottom line is that we are all in the center of this, and we just have to find a way to see how we can make progress and make things happen. One little thing I want to talk about COVID-19 that I've noticed, and I think I would have shared it with some people. It has this habit of going for what we call existing conditions, especially from a physiological point of view. So it will go, if you've got a heart problem, it will go for your heart. If you've got suffering from hypertension, it goes for that. Any kind of physiological weakness that you have, it tends to go for. But when you look at society, that's exactly what it's doing to society. It's attacking all the weaknesses that we have in our system in terms of our health system, our political system, our educational system. Anything that's been weak is sort of gone for. And so when you look around you and you say, okay, which areas do we begin to pay attention to? Which areas do we begin to sort of see how can we protect, redefine? You find that some of these things begin to get very, very obvious. And in order to secure our own future as enterprise and as businessmen and business people, we can't disaggregate ourselves from what is going on totally. You know, the example was given about Eco Hotel all of a sudden using its resources in areas that you'd never expect. And I can imagine some hotels would sort of, you know, turn around and become hospitals. I heard that one state governors sort of commandeered a particular hotel to become a hospital. So we all have to start to look at things in the broadest sense possible as to what it is that we can do, how can we move on in order to make a difference. Another fundamental thing, and I think these things are very fundamental, is that you find out that we have a situation where, okay, this is a contagious disease. And therefore, what it has done, it has stopped the connectivity of people. So anything that you want to do that concerns people getting together, it says, no, it can't happen anymore. So even the partnerships you have at home is challenged because grandkids can't see grandparents anymore. You can't have your parties. You can't have your weddings. You can't have your seminars. You can't fly on a plane because you're sitting next to somebody. So it has succeeded in actually separating us physically. And so when we begin to look for the kind of solutions that we need and where we're going to go to next, it's like, to what extent can we support a system that actually discourages people from coming close to each other? And how do we find solutions to the fact that people can no longer sort of connect? And yet when you look at the essence of business, the essence of the life that we live, and the things that we do every day, it revolves around our ability to connect with each other, to share things, to exchange things, and to touch and to feel and to, you know, all those things, they're all being challenged. So when we now say to ourselves, how do we resolve the new future? How do we deal with it? These are some of the fundamental things we've got to bear in mind as we begin to think about it, that, okay, how can we resolve this? And when you look at a lot of people that are in the kind of business that I think I'm talking about, part of it is service, whereby we can participate in service. We can't use all the digital connections. We can work from home and do all those wonderful things that we have with the various applications. But at the end of the line, a service has to be delivered. And that service is usually a physical service. So I have an online system that allows you to dial in, order your food, and then I've got to cook the food, and then I've got to deliver it to you and place it at your doorstep. So no matter how you transform service, it ends up at some kind of a physical form. And it's that physical form that we begin to see that is being challenged, our ability to make that connectivity and that eventual connection at the end of the day. So these are the kind of things that you find that COVID is sort of doing in terms of disrupting economic life. I look very, very briefly at take aviation. All of a sudden we wake up and you can't fly anymore. And you've got huge investments in aircraft. I don't know if you've seen some videos about the number, hundreds of literally thousands and thousands of aircrafts that have just been put aside because you can't use them anymore. So you ban flying literally overnight. You lost all that traffic. Business is halted. So no more conferences, no more meetings, no vacation that can take place. Hotels have been shut down. People that provide service to the whole value chain, it's all disappeared. Even hotels that used to employ people, all those things are gone. So we do have a major disruption, and yes, I think these are things that are going to affect us. But the thing, what are companies going to have to do? Well, the first thing that companies are going to have to cut costs. There's no doubt about it. You've got to reduce costs, and that's what a lot of organizations are doing. Some are doing it by having pay cuts, some are downsizing, some are forcing people to go on leave, some are saying people should go on leave without pay. And then, of course, people are being asked to work from home. Working from home again because we cannot have that social interaction. So how do we support people who have to work from home? There's a lot of talk that's going on about working from home, and it's a big thing, and it is a huge thing. Recently, at Phillips Consulting, we just produced a report about working from home and the various challenges that people are facing and the kind of things that organizations should do. But the point is, it is a reality, and we have to try and find a way in which you can support our people in working from home. And we've got to equip them. It sounds very funky, and it's a nice new thing to do. But the thing about it is that how can we make it happen for staff? How do we support the staff in doing these things? And these things are, there are all kinds of ideas about this, and it sounded exciting from the research that we did. Everybody was excited about it at the beginning. But come second, third week, believe me, laws of diminishing returns started to set in. People were dissatisfied at home. There were issues at home. Even personal issues that were cropping up. You now have to manage with the children at home. All kinds of things were coming up, and it was no longer very glamorous. And so the challenge is being thrown back at organizations and saying, what are you guys going to do to help me to go to work from home? Because I don't have a choice but to work from home. And people are now realizing that, look, you've got to discipline yourself. Literally, wake up, dress up in a particular way, find a corner in your home and act like you're in the office rather than just regarding that, look, it's just another thing that's going on. So there's a lot of discipline and a lot of redefinition that's going on. And if you're going to help our employees to succeed so that we can succeed, we must be ready to help them, to advise them, and to equip them, okay? A lot of people complain about not having power to be able to do that, and not having the internet access. We did another survey where we were trying to find out from organizations what's important to them. And they said, what we want from government is, please, we want, a broadband access. Please, we want constant power supply. Okay, those are the key things that we want, apart from the fact that, yes, we want some tax relief and we want some other reductions in levies that go on. But these are things that are very, very real to people and things that we've got to pay attention to. So for me, going forward, people have to learn and people have to be very, very courageous. A lot of courage is required, you see, because when you're in an environment in which there's a lot of risk, then you need courage in order to be able to deal with that type of risk. And so people have to get up and take responsibility and be very, very bold in the things that they have to do. From a strategy point of view, you got to really ask yourself, not so much what is happening to me as an organization or to us as an organization, is what's happening to my customers. Do I have any customers left? What are the challenges that my customers are facing? Because if they're not succeeding, there's no way that I can succeed. all of a sudden, the responsibility you have is not just about you and them, it's about what they're doing as well, and how you can help them to solve their problems in their value chain, even though you're not a consulting firm, you're just a service provider. But the point is they need to survive so that you can survive. And the things you look at, because there's some customers that will win, some of them are going to lose, some of them you're going to not need their services, some of them are going to need your services, some can't even afford you anymore. Some you have to reduce and revise the kind of fees or charges for products and services that you used to provide in the past. And you find that you've got to look at what's affecting your customers in terms of the fact that, are they going digital as well? And if they're going digital, how can you respond to their own digital inclination so that you continue to be very, very relevant with respect to the kind of things that you've got to do? You've got to think about all these things. And your staff, the kind of skills that we need now. And I'll confess to you, just when I was trying to get on board on this particular program, I got stuck again, and you had to call my own IT guy to come and save us, literally from the panic we went through, in the sense that we couldn't connect. So a lot of skill is required, and we need to train our people to sort of regard all the digital connectivity almost as easy as reading and writing. So training is going to be required on that. You find that also the ability to interact with people. We can't interact personally anymore. So it's got to be telephone, digital. The new skills are required to interact from that point of view, rather than when I used to see you and I can smile and I can do all kinds of things, and there are all kinds of body language that I can put into place. Now you're dealing with people either on a screen or just reading their text. And even the marketing companies have to begin to advise on what are the things that we can do to get our people to align with this new way of marketing and engaging and providing service. Even within organizations themselves, the functional roles that we all used to play, we've got to stop that and look at very, very strong cross-functional teams, whereby it's a case of, are you good at this? If you are, please join the team and help us and participate in the process of delivering the service. In the past, when you're in the office physically, it's so easy for you to have that physical mental silo, or you're sitting in that department and my team is sitting on that department, on that side of the building. Now we are also virtual, and these kind of skills and flexibility and knowledge that's required is a lot more than what we used to have in the past, and we need to really try and take advantage of these things. So going forward, we got to try and see how we can anticipate possibilities. And that brings the concept of a sort of innovation. And then I'll keep quiet, because we talk a lot about innovation. And for me, it's about looking at taking a step back and having a very, very broad view of things. What is possible in our system, not just your company or your organization, what's possible in a whole environment, even globally and locally. And what is probable, because what is possible might not be probable, okay? And you've got to look at that. And each time you look at it, try and learn to empathize. Look at it from your personal point of view, even from your family's point of view, because it's the things that touch us that allow us to think through the process thoroughly. From your work point of view, in terms of the mates that you have at work, and even from the larger community, what is possible, what is probable in terms of the future? And this comes from things that are risky, or things that are natural, or things that work well. We've had a lot of unexpected things within the last 3 months. Who would imagine? You just think about it. Where were you 3 months ago? What were you doing 3 months ago compared to what is happening today? A lot has changed. A lot of people have died globally that you don't know about, but the fear of that death is there. A lot of closures of organizations, companies that just shuts down because they just had no more business going forward. We've locked down and told people to stay at home. I had an instance where a sort of a distant aunt of mine in Lagos was complaining that, they didn't allow us to open our shop, and she sells clothes. And I said, who's going to buy lace from you at this time? Who's going to buy clothes from you at this time? You want us to allow you to open shops? Who is buying? Because a certain part of society needs to be active for you to see the benefit, and all that has been shut down. So we're looking at a situation whereby we have to try and be very, very innovative. And part of that innovation comes from looking at what's happening in other regions of the world, because part of the world is ahead of us, okay? Even the COVID-19 started ahead of us, and it was our ability to anticipate this credit to Lagos State and some other state governments, whereby we were sort of prepared because the World Health Organization actually says we're very, very prepared ahead of the crowd. But the thing about it is that what can we anticipate is going to happen based on what is happening everywhere else. Now, innovation for me, innovation is, I define it as finding the next level of customer convenience. The next level of customer convenience. What can we provide to our customers is going to make it convenient for them to do business with us? And if you look at what has happened worldwide, even today, the concept of, I would say, the concept of years ago switching an air conditioner off by going out there and turning the switch on to switching it off with a switch today, with you turning up and winding up your car windows by pushing a button, be able to go to the banks and actually find out that in my days, as I age or declare my age, to get a bank balance, you had to go physically to the bank and fill out a form where they look it up for you. Today, you can do it on the telephone. You can transfer money anywhere in the world. But what's the fundamental thing about all that? It's convenience. So when we are asking ourselves, what can I do next? Sit down and say to yourself, how can I make life convenient for my customer? How can I look at the next level of convenience that makes it easy for me to deliver service? Another way I put it is that, how can I make a wish come true? Sometimes we say, how I wish this could happen, how I wish that could happen. Those wishes are opportunities for innovation. I never say it can't happen, because I tell you, 3 months ago, compared to now, a lot of things are happening that we never imagined could happen. So, and it's not about technology alone. You've got to be able to sit down and look at your value chain. Each step, how can I make life convenient for the customer? I can't begin to tell you what it is. You've got to try and understand your business. But the fundamental part, the essence of you finding your relevance in the new world that we're looking at is, how can we make things convenient for customers and take advantage of all those opportunities that we see around us. So I'm going to stop there, because there's a whole range of things, and I can't begin to be very specific about a particular industry. But the fundamental thing about it is that we've got to bear in mind that innovation is what we need to do, and a lot of organizations need to structure themselves. One last thing before I keep quiet, we again conducted another survey, trying to find out from organizations what's important to them from a professional service firm like ours, and what's important to them from government. And the kind of things that they were coming up with, they're saying, oh, we need help with supply chain. And these are SMEs and the micro organizations. We need help with our strategy, because what do we do? Things are changing, the customers are changing. We need help with research, doing customer surveys, research. What's the trend? What are the possibilities? More of those, even before you start talking about people management or training. Funny enough, the larger organizations were concerned about training, remote training, but the smaller ones were saying, look, I need to survive, and I really need to do things that can make me work. From the government, they're saying, oh, as usual, give us power, give us internet access, lower interest rates, tax rebates, those things that we all understand normally affects these companies. But when you look at it all, the thing is, people have got to be courageous. You've got to really, when you say think out of the box, thinking out of the box is being innovative. To be innovative, you've got to have a certain level of empathy. And again, what are the wishes? What are the possibilities? Because the things that were impossible to do before, they're very possible now. Okay, I'll stop there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, FOP, for that. I think there was a lot to unpack there. And I'll go straight away on the point you made about how do we keep people productive, and how do we, start looking at our costs. And I think, I'm going to go straight to Onyinye. FOP talked about, how do we unlock productivity out of our people? I know you don't just only manage a team. You're also responsible for a lot of great solutions that MTN is sort of putting out there from an enterprise perspective. So how do we, I would love you to unpack that more for us. How do we manage the productivity? How do brands manage the productivity of its staff? And also, how do we look at optimizing our costs?
Thanks, Dayo. And thank you very much, Mr. Phillips. That was such a good opening for us. I think you practically did most of my job, but I'll just try to layer. Yeah, I think you did, because you did touch on very fundamental areas that are very pertinent to some of the points I'm going to make now. Dio, to understand or to look at how to make sure that we keep the productivity up with our employees, the first thing is to first of all step back and say, what are those things that could be acting as impediments to their optimal productivity? And I think that those things have been touched on in some way, but I'll just try to like summarize it. The first one is the change, the change in behavior, the change in culture. Traditionally, what we're used to, at least 80% of the companies that are in existence today, is a situation where employees actually go into the office. There's a physical interaction, and we may underestimate the impact of that, physical interaction, but it does a lot for team motivation, because a lot of us, you see, sometimes when we're doing our personal assessment, we look at what types of people we're bringing into a team. Some people are introverted, some people are extroverts. Now, the combination of that is what gives you that optimal team performance. And so what it simply means is that some of us feed off the energy of others. Now, you have a situation where you no longer have that energy to feed off because you're stuck at home. You no longer have access to the levels of information you used to have when you actually used to physically come into the office. Again, because, you are on your own. So there's that feeling of loneliness. There's that feeling of self-isolation because you can't quite interact or meet with people the way you used to. So that on its own is a problem, and it presents a challenge to organizations. And then finally, you also have the distractions that happen at home. There's a reason why workspaces are created within an office, and you are expected to go to the office from 8 to 5. It's just so that organizations get the optimal productivity out of you on a daily basis. But now you're at home. You have your spouse, you have your children, you have all sorts of distractions. So these are some of the challenges that organizations have found that their employees are being faced with, which creates a problem. Now, what can they do? What can organizations, what can brands do to make sure that, they keep this productivity up? Why? Because clearly this is probably going to be our new normal. A lot of things are going to change. The last two speakers have spoken, very much about why things have to change. And, prior to now, I remember last year sometime we were talking at a conference, and we were talking about the fact that, it's a VUCA world, and there's a lot of uncertainty and people are not sure about how things are going to play out. I don't think any of us anticipated this type of health crisis, but it's here now. And so, of course, we have to remodel ourselves as organizations, as brands, to prepare for, what is our new normal. So what are one of the things I would like us to, if in my view, that I've seen that is very helpful in terms of motivating employees? The first thing is communication. It's really very important at this point in time. You really need, as an employer, you need to be in touch with your employees. And communication at this time has to be very transparent. It has to be real, and it has to be factual. It also has to show that you are empathizing with their situation, because currently everybody is concerned about their health, is concerned about their safety. So you can't disregard that. So you need to prioritize that first and show them that, even though they are working from home, you are very, 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 interested in their health and their safety. Now, once you've gotten that out of the way, the next step is to make sure that you are clear. You set clear expectations about what is expected from the team. Now, in MTN, I think, if I may say so myself, the organization has done a very good job of making sure that there is clear communication between the management and the team members, because you have very diverse teams within an organization, but you have to make sure that the communication is consistent across all the layers and tiers within the organization. The second thing that you need to also deal very quickly with is making sure that your employees have the right tools, the right communication, the right collaboration, and the right connectivity tools that would be required to do their job. Now, what you find is that as Mr. Phillips spoke, he talked about the fact that a lot of organizations are asking government for broadband. it's a very, very important element of, making sure that your team members are in touch with you and are in touch with your customers, because you need to be certain that you are still there for your customers. Remember that the reason you're in business is because of your customers. And so you need to put in place tools that would help your staff, your employees, be there at every point in time, not just for themselves in terms of meetings, but also for customers in terms of engagements. So you look at, collaboration tools, for example, you have the Microsoft Teams. We're currently using Zoom, which is also a very good tool. You have a lot of others. You have Blue Jeans, and there are a lot more. And then you also have the chats, the WhatsApp, There's a lot of communication that can go on, from the groups you form on WhatsApp and from the direct conversations that can happen even on SMS. So you put all these tools in place and make sure that there's clarity for your employees as to how they should be utilizing those tools. Again, in MTN, the organization has also taken a lot of time to make sure that each and every employee is given an extra bucket of data to make sure they are available within working hours and also available for our customers. So this is also very critical. So so internally we've tried to do that to make sure that we take care of the employees. But we also recognize, like Mr. Phillips said, that there's an SME market. There are people who do not have access to funds or resources to be able to keep up with this. So a lot of initiatives have also been put in place, including the free 10 SMSs to the base every day. And these are some of the things that MTN is doing, not just to help our employees, but to help the larger, community. And consistently, we do keep coming up with all sorts of solutions just to make sure that we we help the nation that we serve or the nation that we find ourselves in, keep communicating even at organizational level as well as at individual levels. Now, another thing that is also very critical for an employee, or an employer to do at this time is to have, systems that help you to track your employee performance and what they are up to on a daily basis. Prior to now, we did talk quite a lot. I mean, there's a lot of conversation about digital transformations and, how organizations need to start to transform their businesses to be more digital. I think the time is now. And it's so very important for organizations to start to think about those tools and those systems and those processes that can be automated, to drive the efficiency that is required within their business, especially at this time. Now, when you look at cost efficiency, sometimes we equate that to trying to reduce the budget or, cut budgets and all of that. But it's not about that. It's about looking for areas of waste within our supply chain and our value chain and reducing such through automation and digitizing our processes to make sure that we are spending less and doing more, which should be the ultimate goal of any efficient organization. So for me, when I needs to be done by employers, I think it's important that they keep up the communication channels. And I'll just pull it all into three. So for me, it's collaboration tools, making sure that your employees have the right collaboration tools, which are of course foundationed on data, and making sure that your employees have the right communication tools. They are able to make calls, they are able to reach out to your customers, and they are available not just to you as the management, but also to your customers at every point in time. And then, of course, they are well connected. They are connected to themselves. You are encouraging not just work activities, but also, team bonding, team building activities. For example, in my own case, when I have meetings with my team, we have meetings every week. But for some time within the period for the meetings, we spend time, playing games. We play games on Kahoots, we do quizzes and all of that. All of that is just to, continue to build and bond the team and create that semblance of an office environment, which, they are obviously missing. So these are some of the things that I believe that, we can put in place to actually keep motivating and improving on the performance of our employees, and at the same time drive cost efficiency within the organization. Absolutely. Thanks, Dio.
No, thank you so much for that, Onyinye. I think you touched on a lot of very, very important points. And I love particularly the point you make about organizations zooming in on reducing waste. Because I know once people start talking about cost cutting, the natural thing is to think about, okay, how do we start, cutting jobs, etc. And I know in some regrettable issues, it's going to have to happen. But as much as possible, it's actually about doing more with what you currently have. And I think technology really enables us to do that across the key areas. We talked about collaboration and obviously how connectivity plays a key part. At this point, I would like to bring in Janet, because I feel like, Onyinye talks a lot about how technology can really enable companies, enable brands. But I think for you specifically, what I would love to find out is, how do you think this would change the way businesses work in the future? As someone that has worked with, you're currently heading off marketing for Oracle for Africa, you've worked in a lot of very technology-driven sort of environments. But from your own opinion, how do you think this would change the way, business actually works in the future?
Thank you, Dara. That's a really great question. And when it's difficult to really predict, there are some definite things that we can already start seeing happening. And some, of course, have already been alluded by the panelists. But I want to just focus on 5 of them. The first one being from an employee perspective. So we one of the things that I see happening is that companies will be more empathetic to their employees. We shall see more policies on boosting employee safety, employee morale. Just a few weeks ago, rather the last few weeks, the last few months, we've seen an increase in employee forums with talks on wholesomeness, on family-related topics such as parenting, which before were always put aside and are not really seen to be important or critical at that stage. We're also seeing medical policies. I foresee that medical policies will also likely to be enhanced, and of course, work from home will be more accepted and not viewed, sort of thing. We shall see companies setting up digitally enabled remote working environment that has to ensure productivity. And then secondly, from a customer perspective, we see that companies will have to constantly relook at their value propositions and what truly aligns the immediate needs of their customers or for their prospects. And we have seen that because of increased price-based competition and commodity selling, companies had reverted to selling product features. So one of the old cliches, that we all know in business is that customers want a quarter-inch hole and not quarter-inch, drills. So that companies that want to survive, therefore, must sell services and solutions. So build on lifetime relationships and continuing connections rather than just transactional, and occasional encounters here and there with their consumers. Then also from a perspective, companies will have to build remote selling capabilities. And for that, they will need to invest, in technologies. So for example, we are seeing an increase in, back here in Kenya, we are seeing an increase in chemists that are providing online shopping or telephone shopping and delivering medication, at home to patients. Likewise, we are seeing pediatricians, having another delivery channel. So we are having one-on-one, we are seeing one-on-one home visits, Zoom patient calls for normal checkups. So a patient doesn't have to really go to the hospital if they don't have to. And from an educational perspective, we are seeing, institutions will have to build multiple channels for learning. So not just face-to-face, what is the role of radio, online, and so on, and make it a strategic channel within which they deliver this mode. Another example is tourism. So I'm sure we are likely to see a rise in virtual visits, so you can visit the Masai Mara in the comfort of your own home, Dayo, and just, get to see it from a 360. Those are some of the things that we are likely to see, coming forth, in the future. And then thirdly, companies will invest more in strategic relationships to ensure quality product and service delivery anywhere efficiently. So to build their capabilities, companies therefore will in future purposefully and strategically look at partnerships, even unusual ones, with their own competitors. Yeah. And then fourthly,
I think, sorry.
Okay, and then.
No, sorry, go on, yeah.
All right. Okay. And then fourthly, companies will have to relook at the inherent purpose. So really, what do they stand for? Who are they? Why do they exist? And find, and find ways to connect really with their, with their consumers and support their communities, in that way. I think it was mentioned earlier by one of the panelists. And this is one of the things that we are seeing as well here, is that manufacturing companies that have got, capabilities are now starting to produce masks and hand sanitizers and so on. So that is some of the innovative things that we, companies are going to start doing in their future once they look at who really are there and how can they work in their, for their community. So not just for gain perspective, but also to, to help. And then lastly, I think that companies will invest more in technologies so they can be more productive, more sustainable, and of course more efficient. So we expect to see investments in areas like artificial intelligence, machine learning, to digitize client interactions, like maybe in the call centers or for virtual assistants. We also expect to see a lot of data analytics to mitigate risk in planning, forecasting, supply chain, and so on. And then, of course, in addition, the use of cloud services, application development, and e-commerce applications will also increase. So really, it's an opportune time for companies to evaluate their capabilities in readiness for their future. Thank you, Dio.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much, Janet. And just for those who don't know, Janet is dialing in from Nairobi, which apparently they're having a much sunnier day than we are here in Lagos. But thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I think one of the interesting points that you made, which I think is quite pertinent to what FOP mentioned as well, what Foluso and Phillips mentioned as well, in terms of a decrease in certain businesses. I mean, you touched on tourism a little bit. He talked about the airline business that has sort of seen their business really drastically reduced, to near nothing because of the restrictions. And at this point, I want to bring kind of Clara in on this. And Clara, my question to you would be: how do brands that all of a sudden find themselves in a position where their product and their offering is drastic, demand for their product and offering is drastically reduced? What should these brands be thinking? What should they be doing? Can you sort of expand on that and give us some of your advice, experience? Sorry, Clara. Sorry, can you start again? Sorry, Clara, can you start again? It was just that you were, yeah, we can hear you now. Fantastic.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much for having me here, Dio. Just a point of correction, I'm actually one of the directors at Latitude. Latitude is a corporate gifts and promotional items company. So thank you again for having me. So first of all, I would like to go over the definition of a brand. A brand is a name, a symbol, or something that identifies your goods and services and how it's different from other brands out there. A marketing strategy refers to a business overall game plan customers and turning them into customers. And then also the overall experience of user experience that people may want to know is how a user experience is an overall experience of a person using your products. And then of course, innovation is something unique and something different that you do to set your products or services apart from others. I wanted to go over this definition for the purposes of our audience who may not have that marketing background. So Dio asked a very good question, that if you find out that your brand suddenly starts to not get the appeal that it used to get, what would you do? First of all, in a pre-COVID, when that happens, you want to find out exactly why that is happening. So you have to do a research or do a questionnaire and find out exactly why your brand is not losing user maybe a consideration in their buying decisions, But with COVID, obviously, it was on a sudden change that happened, and a lot of people are now facing a challenge of reduced sales and revenues. And so I've come up with some key things that we can do. And obviously, a lot of the earlier on had mentioned that before now. Definitely, you have to innovate. You have to do something different. But I will also share how we at Latitude have been trying to do that. How we've been trying to more innovative, be top of mind with our customers, because a lot of our customers, people now, the things on our minds include health, include how do we survive, how do we move our businesses forward, especially with small businesses in Nigeria. A lot of people have low budgets to even run any campaign at all. So what we've been doing is, the first thing is being empathetic. Realize this is a new normal for so many people, so they're realizing that they're keeping in touch with their customers, sending them emails, saying that, you know, we are with you with on this. We understand what is going on. We just wanted to say hello. Just a message to just show your employees, show your customers that you really care. We are going to fight this together. The second thing you can do to revive your brand is to connect with your customers. I don't know how many SMEs have been doing this, where you keep a record or a CRM, a customer relationship management tool that tracks the details of your customers, whether their name, email, phone number. And so this is really the time during this pandemic to go back to those tools and start calling your customers, start reaching out to them and connecting with them. It could just be sending them greetings or Happy New Week, or highlighting some of your services, or however you want to connect with your customers. With SMEs, obviously, a lot of us have targeted customers. We have a group of people that we have been reaching out to pre-COVID. So it's very important that you connect with those customers during the time. To do also diversify your products and services. A lot of people, speakers have mentioned earlier on that people are now thinking outside the box, they're innovating, they're doing something different, and now they're diversifying their products offerings. So if you used to offer, for example, maybe a certain product, this is probably a good time to start offering something different that will appeal to customers at this time. And also your service offerings as well. Like for instance, I personally am a serial entrepreneur, so I run 2 companies, and trying to find ways to bring in the other services and products that we provide in our other company, sister company, and introducing it to customers in the other company. I mean, and the products are not necessarily complementary, but they are relevant at this time during this pandemic. For instance, the health products at Latitude, we normally provide corporate gifts and promotional items, but now we do provide general supplies and health products. Another thing you want to do is collaborate with organizations that are doing similar things, just like we're doing today. Hive, the Sponge Group, is having a program. We have speakers from different organizations coming up to make the program a success. And then finally, I would say that whatever you do, whatever innovation you come up with or marketing strategy you come up with, you want to make sure that it's sustainable. It's not like a one-off. It's something that, that will even stand the test of time after COVID. It's something that you can carry. And it's important that you're able to measure the results. Now, how are you able to measure the results of your marketing strategy to your sales and revenues? I mean, are you having increased sales as a result of that strategy? I mean, those are some of the things you want to probably look at to evaluate the results of your marketing strategy.
Thank you so much for that. And I think it's good to sometimes go back to the innovation is. And I like the idea of, bringing new products. And you gave us some very practical examples of how you at Latitude as well are bringing in new products from maybe sister companies, etc. I think the key thing that I'm getting from you is, you need to be flexible and you need to constantly dialogue with your key stakeholders, right? Which include obviously your consumers. So thank you so much for that, Clara. I think at this point, one of the things that I would like to do is just, because we have to wrap up really quickly so we can get into the next session. We have a bunch of speakers, raring to come on to this session as well. And we've been incredibly honored, that you guys have given us time out of, very, very busy schedules. And I really, really, truly appreciate that. Do you have any questions you want to ask each other? I know that sometimes these forums, the host seems to dominate it, but are there any questions you want to ask each other? For example, Onyinye, do you want to ask Yinka anything in First Bank or vice versa? It might help us as well as we're listening in or eavesdropping.
Thanks, Dayo, again. So I would like to ask Yinka something, and that would be around I know that your scope is beyond just the digital marketing, but I would like to have an idea as to how First Bank is driving your digital marketing initiatives now. What are the channels? What types of media are you currently utilizing to push your campaigns out there? And for you also, what would be the most relevant types of campaigns, especially at this time?
So I think Yinka, because of the question, Yinka ran away. He was intimidated by it. I'm just joking. I think he's having internet issues,
well, I'm sure we can touch base later, and then.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Yeah, he's certainly not on MTN, because if it was an MTN, you have a great connectivity.
Sorry, I have a question
Janet?
for Onyeka. So Onyeka, what are you doing for SMEs? I know you touched on that briefly, but what are some of the data plans that you have for small business, small SMEs that have very limited budgets right now?
Okay, thanks, Clara. It's Onyinye, but it's fine. It's
Onyinye,
Onyinye family. MTN, we're very, 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 very big on SMEs. It's an area that we are super passionate about, and over the years we've consistently tried to work with SMEs to keep providing solutions and pathways to their growth. Now we are putting together quite a bit. We do have quite a bit that we've sort of curated for SMEs, all the way from the voice solutions to possible hosted PABX solutions, just to help them to aid how they are able to engage their customers, to data plans that can work for a single SME or an SME who has up to 10 employees within his kitty, or even beyond that. So we do have graded data plans. We also have beyond that. We even have some collaboration tools. We've recently gone into a partnership with Microsoft. So we're working with Microsoft to actually provide the Office 365 suites for SMEs, bundled with very cost-effective data plans, which would allow them, carry out a lot of activities, their customers, collaborate, and all of that. We also have, in addition to that, we know that one of the key requirements or key challenges that SMEs face is access to markets. So we do have quite a bit of solutions that we've put together in terms of digital advertising, SMS communications and SMS marketing. So there's quite a bit that we have going, but I'm happy to engage you further offline to talk more about what we have for SMEs.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, we really need to run. We really need to round off now. People are screaming in my ear that we're late for the next session, and we've got a bunch of great speakers as well at the next session. I really hope you stay on and enjoy the next session. But I want to thank you so much for your time. Janet, thank you so much for your time in out of Nairobi. you for coming on board and telling us about your wisdom. Onyinye, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for blessing us with your insights as well.
Thank
and
you.
Obviously, FOP, I know you're there listening to us somewhere. Thank you so much for your incredible wisdom. We're well equipped, even more so from hearing from you. So, guys, thank you so much. As I welcome the next session, Clara, thank you so much, Clara, for rounding off the session with those great bits of insight and also those great questions as well. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. Like I said, please stay on and let's move on to the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so we're going to move on to the next session in our program, and we've got some incredible speakers lined up for you. Okay, so are you ready to? Great. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. This is Aduke Atiba.
Hi, Dayo.
We can hear you. We can hear you
Okay.
perfectly, and we can see you as well, which is even more, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're just Nnenna, you've joined us as well. Thank you so much, guys, for being incredibly patient. I know, I know that we've run off. Now, this session, I've been really looking forward to this session. Now, I'm not saying that the other session wasn't great, but this is my favorite session.
I feel like everyone is your favorite.
You think everybody's my favorite? Okay, no, but this one particularly is my favorite. Is my favorite session because I feel like we're bringing back the old gang in many instances. We're bringing people that were at so many of you may not be aware of this if you're joining us for the first time, but in March, the 10th of March, we had a fantastic event where we launched the largest designathon in Nigeria. We brought together graphic designers and SMEs, and we matched them together to come up with great new logos for these businesses. And then that kicked off a whole series online where people voted for their favorite logos. And part of what we're going to do today after this session is going to announce the winner of the incredible 1 million Naira prize. And it'll go to one very, very lucky graphic designer. But before we do that, let's bring the old gang back together. And we've got Aduke Atiba from Landover. So Aduke Atiba is the executive director of Landover and Overland Airways. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be with us. Ubong is also with us. Ubong is unfortunately Lola Masha couldn't attend. So Ubong is more than capable of filling her shoes, I'm sure. So he's also going to join in the conversation. Nnenna, we all know from Yellow Brick Road. She was at the very first session as well. So she's also going to be, she's also here with us. And Sola, today, though she's new to the group, is one that I think we should definitely embrace in our new group. And she runs OSC, who is one of the largest clothing manufacturers in Nigeria. So we're very, very happy to have her on board. And yes, that's it. The band is all together. Remi Dada has finally joined us.
How you guys doing?
We're super excited. How you doing, Remi?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. You don't seem to be as bushy as I am. I don't think anybody on the planet is as bushy as I am.
Yeah,
there you go.
My wife and I have figured out our Baba's situation.
Fantastic. You see, that's the secret, man. That's the secret. So guys, I'm just going to really kick off by, again, it's really not as formal as the first session. I really just want to pick your brains in terms of, and I think, Nnenna, you and I had conversations about this, this whole entire pandemic has made us look at our businesses very differently, right? There's some things that we were doing very right, that thank goodness we were doing them, because obviously we would have been in very difficult situations if we hadn't. But there are also things that caught us unaware. So I guess I'm going to start with you and say, what were some of the things that you feel you learned out of this entire experience, right? In running your business.
So having two of my clients on here, because it's like really good PR for me. So thank you. Gosh, what have I learned? So it's interesting. This is a question that I've been asking a lot of people. I think what I've actually learned is that nobody is experiencing this crisis the same way. So it's easy if you live in Lagos and you work in a formal environment and everyone is talking about work from home and teleworking. It's easy to think that that's the way that the whole country is dealing with this pandemic, right? But the reality is that the vast majority of the population are not in a job that they can work remotely, are much more concerned about their livelihood than sort of health issues. And so they're dealing, and for them, the recession, right, the COVID recession is actually a bigger issue than the sort of social distancing, physical health, right? So it's just been interesting. I guess it's really brought to light to me that there is no kind of one Nigeria, there is no one consumer. And depending on kind of where you are, what you do for a living, how much money you make, your experience of this is very different. And so it's a conversation that we've been having with some of our clients, is that you have to have a very graduated response, right? There is no one size fits all. And so even though that's something that you knew, because it's very easy, right, to get into this thing of, okay, we gotta be doing digital campaigns and social campaigns. I'm like, yes, but if I'm doing this thing and you're doing everything on Instagram, on WhatsApp, if there is somebody in Onitsha, in inland town in Onitsha, you're not gonna reach them. And if I'm selling something that's 20 naira and you buy it from a malam on the corner, the kinds of sort of digital interactions that we're thinking about may not work, right? So you and I have talked about how do you innovate for the bottom of the pyramid? How do you do digital for someone that has a feature phone that isn't going to be on Instagram or can't do, this isn't whatever, I don't know what service, that doesn't know what Zoom is, right? And so it's really brought to light to me the disparate experiences that people have in this country. And the fact that you really more and more have to be building regional expressions, right? Almost capsule campaigns. So yes, as a brand, you have to mean one thing and have one story, but how you execute it will be increasingly diverse, right? Because you have to understand that some of the channels that you're using are not going to reach some customers, some of the issues that you're dealing with. I mean, I saw a piece of research that said that, right now, at the beginning of everything, right? In March, this is the 10th of March, and right after, right, everything went to hell. People were worried about, they wanted brands to tell them that it would be okay. Like they wanted brands to reassure them. They wanted brands to tell them how to stay safe. They wanted brands to use their power to just help mitigate the crisis. Now they want practical help. There is less naira in my wallet, and the naira that I have is worth less, right? So people are now concerned about the recession and money, right? So and it's also interesting to me that the conversations and concerns that people had 3 weeks ago are not the same ones that they have now, right? So this is also a moving target. There is no, this is how it is. Every day you wake up and then there's just something else has happened. There's some new thing. And I guess the last thing that it taught me is to live with uncertainty, which is really tough for me. I'm a strategist, right? And so you have data and then you make decisions and you build models and you build frameworks. There just isn't enough information. And so people are just having to get used to making decisions on the fly, having to change the way that they make decisions because you don't have enough time to get all the information and get all your ducks in a row, right? So you're having to just be a little bit more flexible in your decision making and being willing to then reevaluate when you have to, but you just got to keep moving, but you just don't have, I think for me, it's the personal frustration. You just don't have enough information to make a clear decision, but you got to make a decision and be ready, right, to shift if you have to.
Okay, I mean, it's a very interesting point. I mean, obviously, definitely, I think I'm a big advocate for data-driven decision-making and providing data-driven sort of ideas for clients, etc. And at this point, I want to kind of bring Ubong in because I know that one of the things that sort of Nnenna spoke about was about, you know, the mass market and kind of people's sort of needs. And I know that part of what you do is you do actually, you address the very essential need of food, right? So talk a little bit about your company and talk about sort of how you're kind of innovating in this time. I know you've got some brilliant initiatives around sort of giving food as well, but so talk a little bit about that and sort of how you guys have approached this particular crisis.
Right. All right. So thank you very much, Dada, for being here. Unfortunately, Lola wasn't able to join in today, but I hope I make a good representation for her and as well as the company. So just let me quickly talk about my company and what we do. Babban Gona Farmers Services is a social enterprise, and we work with smallholder farmers in rural communities. Typically, we support our farmers with inputs for farming activities. We typically provide them with these inputs on credit at the beginning of the season and allow them to farm and pay us back with their harvest. And with the COVID-19 pandemic spreading, you know, I think one of the key things that we try to double down on as an organization was to really reflect on what our own core values are and build on that, right? And so we are focused on people. That's our business, right? We're focused on low-income earners, low-income farmers, and so everything we've done has been to sort of say how well can we serve our farmers even in these trying times. So one of the very first things that we did as an organization was to conduct a sensitization campaign in a lot of the communities where we were present in 5 different states in northern Nigeria. And I think at the end of that campaign, we had reached out to roughly around 200,000 people, basically educating them and enlightening them about the virus and the effects and what they need to do to stay safe. And subsequently, I would say that what that has done for us as an organization is, I wouldn't say we didn't start out with how well we can position our brand, but our focus was how best can we serve these people, right? And that had been the driving force behind some of the things that we've done internally. You also mentioned the Give Food initiative that we're spearheading, providing food for people across the country. I would say that it's really about how we're able to look at what we represent and what we want to be known for, which is beyond just being an organization that is out there in the market, but being a company that is actually very responsive to people. And our processes and structures have always been built around that sort of flexibility to say, how best can you help the people that you're working with? And I think that's one thing we've done, and I think we're doing a pretty good job there as well.
Absolutely. I think the Give Food initiative that you're spearheading with all these different incredible brands, I think it's an incredible initiative. And if people online don't know anything about it, please go and Google it, go and search, about it, because I think it's an incredible initiative, and we definitely tip our hats to you guys, and I think you're doing a fantastic job with that. Polly, lovely to see you, Polly. And for those who don't know, Polly was one of the judges. So both Aduke and Polly were the judges in the competition. I'm incredibly delighted that you could make it as we sort of start to try and round up and drill down to the winner of the competition. But again, Polly, just to pose the question to you, how have you what lessons have you learned from this whole entire thing? I mean, what didn't you?
Can you hear me? My sound's a bit funny. What have I learned?
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's been a sobering experience, but a very focusing one as well. And I think, let's not dwell on the tragedy of what's happening globally with the coronavirus, and let's go ahead and look at how we now put ourselves forward, and let's positive side of it. And personally, lockdown totally worked for me. It was a wonderful experience being able to just shut the door on all the noise of the outside world and just focus at home and work at home, and been 10 times more effective than I've been able to be for the previous few years, quite frankly, because I can just focus and just be very clear and targeted in what I'm doing and what I'm focusing on. I think what's been interesting, been in many different ways, personally, work-wise, and also strategically thinking ahead. Let me just touch briefly on two main areas. One is my work in education, and one is my interactions with cultural leaders in the world, which is a result of my role as Lagos State Chairperson of and culture. Let me talk about that one briefly. So Lagos State, you probably don't know it, is part of a global network called World City Culture Forum. And we meet every week. And it's kind of quite a small community of 40 cities. So every week I have the honor of talking to leaders of culture from New York to Seoul, Hong Kong, cities around the world that are maybe sort of a few steps ahead of us. Yes, and cities coming from a different perspective, but this is the thing about coronavirus. It is a global story, and it takes a global response to deal with it. So you can't really say, oh, policy, what happens in New York can't happen here. It is a global issue. We need to tackle it globally. It's spread by people getting on planes and going. We need to have a comprehensive global approach. But a lot of our conversations support the creative industry onto this situation and moving forward a few and get back in the art and culture sector. Of course, globally, culturally, other cities don't have the resilience that we have. So other cities are learning from the resilience on this continent. And so if you look at cultural organizations around the world, from New York, from across the world, Broadway is struggling, the West End is struggling, MoMA is struggling, the Met is struggling, because all these institutions have depended on state funding. Our cultural sector hasn't had that luxury, so in a way it's more resilient. Anyway, so that one thing that I think I've learned is, let's look at, rather than, in the past, up until this time, I've been busy complaining we have more state funded arts, but actually kind of look at what we've got. We've got an incredibly resilient city, and we've got quite a resilient sector. So that's been having people in New York looking at us quite jealously, thinking, my goodness me, how come Lagos has got this resilience? We want Lagos's resilience. So it's quite nice to see other cities being jealous of Lagos. Then with my own work in education, that's also been interesting, because of course I've been talking in education about bringing the 21st century skills into the educational experience of young people and children in Nigeria. The kind of skills that are very much adopted in Western education, in Europe, in the US. And even before coronavirus, educationalists were now talking about the 22nd century skills. And I can't quite remember what they are, but again, it's 4 C's. And 3 of the 4 C's that I can remember is community, caring, and culture. Now, if you look at now what's happened with this pandemic, community and caring are at the fore of everybody's responses. So in terms of education, globally, we're talking a lot more about bringing community and caring into the educational experience. It's like almost like this pandemic is giving us an opportunity to leapfrog. My fear is that, we'll gradually slip back into the norm of what we had before. I don't want to lose focus. Okay, now we really have an opportunity to really question how we're educating, why we're educating, and how can we do it differently. So in terms of what's happening where in the world, let's look at UK and primary schools. It's a hot topic there at the moment. How do you bring kids back into schools when you're meant to have 2 meters between each child? Is not going to work. So in some countries, they're looking at really taking education straight back to the community and bringing education into the home, into the community, into the parks, and thereby also bringing in the creative sector and the cultural sector and bringing them directly into the educational experience, because no longer, ideally, should we be trying to pack 30 to 100 kids in a classroom with one teacher? Yeah, so we need to, here we have an opportunity to completely restructure that, completely leapfrog. And again, yeah, Nigeria, we've got a real opportunity to leapfrog that and get education out into the community. And in terms of how that works for the creative sector and the cultural sector, wouldn't it be awesome to really see our creatives and our cultural sector engaging at community level with young people and children in a lot more interactive way? You know, whilst this is a global pandemic and a global issue, we have to tackle it grassroots and community level. That's the only way to do it. So it's like we've got to destructure everything, tear everything completely apart, take everything right at the community level, and go physically into communities. Because that's another thing that's happening. Everybody's like talking about online education. Everything's online. Look at this, it's all online. And yes, that helps, but it's a bit of a band-aid solution. If you want to level, it's the real and it's the community. And look at what's happening on people's streets during lockdown. You have musicians out there, you have dancers, you have people greeting each other over hedges and fences, you have neighbors dropping off food at neighbors' gates. That's what this is about. It's about the real, and it's connecting with your community. It's knowing who your neighbor is, your neighbor you haven't ever met. You live next door for 5 years. Through this crisis, you now know who your neighbors are. That's where we need to get right down to that level and connect with our neighbors, connect with our community, care for our neighbors and community again. So for me, that's where I'm at. Irritating a lot of people who like pushing online learning is, and I say it's great, good, off you go, run with it. But that's not what I'm about right now. I'm about, yeah, if you want to take what we're doing and put it online, over to you. But what I'm about, where I'm putting my energies, is on my street, in my community, and on my block, and the people I can connect directly with safely. That's my little lesson.
Yeah. No, and I think those are very, very valid lessons. I think everybody would agree that we've got a lot more, everybody's got a fair bit more concern about their community and their neighborhoods, right? This has meant that I've certainly FaceTime with people that I've never FaceTime with before, right? In a long time, right? As a result of this pandemic, which is good or bad, I don't know, but it is something, right? But I think one of the points that you made, which I totally agree with, is look, let's not waste this incredible crisis, right? Let's use this crisis to really rethink not just the way we organize ourselves as society, but not just the way we organize our businesses, but even the way we organize ourselves as society, right? And at that point, I kind of want to bring in Aduke here and sort of ask you the question as well. Like, what would you say this crisis has made you realize about your business or about your strategy that maybe you didn't know before? Anything you appreciate now because we've been forced into this situation?
Okay, thank you very much, Dayo. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, it's good to see everybody again, and I'd like to say, thank you very much for the very interesting interventions. I think a lot has been said, and I wouldn't want to just keep repeating and repeating. But in terms of what are the learning points from this whole experience for us as a business, I run an airline, a local airline, a small niche carrier, which travels the predominantly, let me call the class B routes in Nigeria. And then we also have a parent or sister company, which also runs aviation services. I think this whole experience for a business has just reinforced my belief in diversification. I think Clara spoke earlier on a whole lot on diversification. And I want to say on the airline side, just like Mr. Phillips said, like FOP said, I mean, we're down to zero. Revenue has been zero. It's not only zero. Everybody keeps saying our revenue is down to zero. It's not just zero, it's gone negative because we have to constantly still do what you call preventive maintenance. So we're constantly changing fluids. At times, we're even doing problem flights to the routes that we normally fly. So for the average airline right now, it's a serious crisis. But for us, the learning point has been we have other businesses that we do run that they're allied, I'll call them allied businesses to what we do. We get companies, other companies that have aviation components, third-party aviation components to us of their business. For example, the oil industry, diplomatic community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to a large extent, that has helped us to at least kind of shore up the losses a bit. It's not really made up completely for it, but it's better than being down to ground negative, not just ground zero. So I think other industries can also take an example from that cue. So it would be good to diversify, but in diversifying, you have to be very careful. You need to, it's normally safer to diversify within your space. Because I was trying to really listen to Clara when she was speaking. It could be a bit tricky when you go into another space you're not familiar with, because diversification could either be related, that means it's a continuation of a particular business, or it could be concentric, a product that is related. But when it's related, then there's commonality. For example, in aviation too, when we're going to get fleet of aircraft, we look out for what you call fleet commonality. Then it makes it easier, economies of scale in running the business. So if, for example, now I run aviation and I want to say I want to diversify, I go into agriculture. It just might be a little bit shaky. And out of this too, we've had a lot of requests from so many people, the kind of requests that we never thought could come forward before. Now, I noticed a big gap in our industry, for example, the internal cargo system. Sorry, I'm going to use purely aviation examples here. Internal cargo system. Okay, then. Now, we get requests from people calling us. I had a farm in Ibadan who had about 800 or whatever crates of eggs that he was going to throw away. So that is a big loss. And I kept wondering, we do have cold rooms. We have cold vans, Coca-Cola, everything. That was my example to the gentleman. And I was so glad when somebody mentioned the Eco Hotel example. Now they're using their laundry to serve external clients also. And I kept wondering, I mean, what's Coca-Cola doing there? They supply drinks for parties and all of that. You have this gentleman wants to carry day-old chicks. He has one of the biggest farms in Ibadan. And yet he can't really find anybody else to fill into that gap. And I'm sure people like Lola too, Lola Masha and all of them from the north, a lot of their perishables die on stream before getting to Lagos and to the major cities. And I know you're still allowed to carry food across borders. So these are areas in which I think we need to look at a little bit more in our economy too. We talk about cooperation and all of that, but many times these things just remain as basic theories. So we need to have real practical examples. So I think the economy has to look at that, how we can also share ideas and share synergies to make things work even better. Then another learning point I think I have made out of this whole experience is that we've had to look internally, look into all different components of our business. And we've had to try and substitute a lot of these, because of the volatility of the foreign exchange right now, we've had to look at local substitutes for a lot of our components. And I think a lot of businesses need to begin to look at that. Even as we're looking at resuming flights again, things as simple as, what do you call these things we put on the headrests? A lot of these things are not manufactured locally. Why can't I have the ones made with cloth? With the Nigerian logos and the Nigerian, like we all have this for the interesting, very beautiful African batik face masks. So we're thinking of bringing in a little bit of local content into what we do, because right now cash is king. every single money you have, you've got to be able to conserve as much as possible, especially foreign exchange income. Another thing I can glean from a lot of what a lot of the other speakers have said, we've been talking about knowledge. I think it's high time that we now begin to teach our own staff too to pick up multiple competencies. Now, prior to this time, I was not too IT savvy. Now I'm beginning to learn to do that. So we all have to pick up multiple competencies somewhere along the line. And then again, to the SMEs, I hope I'm still on track. Well, because of the increased visibility that a lot of people have on the online platforms, I think a lot of companies need to begin to look at their branding materials again. Now, a lot of the branding materials I've seen online, I find some logos before that were a bit, I'm coming back to the logo design thing because I still have this little bit of design background in me. We need to look more at our logo design, the fonts, the layouts, taglines, promotional materials generally, because right now, a lot of us now have online presence like we never used to have before. So I think it's important. Those are the few examples. I mean, I can, apart from, without wanting to repeat what every other person has said. So we all need to go back, sit down, re-strategize, and begin to do things differently. It's not enough to say that it's a new normal. We have to actually begin to practice it so that it becomes more effective. Thank you very much. I hope it's
fantastic contribution. Thank you so much, Aduke, for that. I think you touched on so many areas. I definitely think, Ubong, you need to connect with Overland and Landover. I think there is a match there. We're talking about strategic partnerships, you know, and I'm just here connecting you all over the place. But don't forget me in the equation. I think, but I really want to bring in Remi because, you know, even as we talked about making sure that we diversify the market, I know that you've also been doing a lot in that space in terms of really, you know, even before COVID, to be honest with you, you and I have had conversations about what you're doing with Space Finish and the incredible new service you've got out, the online service you've got out. So, you know, I think that's a great example of you not sitting still, but, you know, sort of innovating. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and just use that to tell our audience about how they can also learn from some of your experience?
Yes. Thank you for having us, Dio. Can you hear? Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, like everyone else, this is a situation that no one planned for and no one has a roadmap for, right? So the very first thing that I had to really learn was that I wasn't in this alone, and I allowed myself to feel the challenges and to feel the inadequacies of not having the answers, right? We spent a lot of time really observing and really researching to understand what really was going on. There's a lot of information that was being shared from different places. We spent a lot of time looking at other international markets, what's happening in China. Our interest in China was never as high as it was during this period because we thought China was in the future, right? So what is going on in China right now that they figured out, right, from how to get people back to work and how they're handling just the general workspace. Now, this is a period where everyone is talking about working from home, right? And what Space Finish does is we build innovative workspaces to allow teams to be more productive, right? The very first thing that we saw happen was a lot of projects we were working on were put on hold. And that was a huge concern. Also, as you can imagine, we also saw that the physical restrictions, you can't build an office online. There's certain things you can do online, but you can't do construction online, right? So there were certain direct impacts that we had to come to terms with. But through this, we also got some insights. We understood that there's a segment of our business that is design first. So we first go with the design process and we figured out how to optimize that experience online, right? And we said to offer that part of the experience to a lot of our clients. We had certain clients who continued with their projects. We had some large multinationals who wanted to move forward. But after a while, once the lockdown was released, we were very encouraged because what we saw was that a lot of businesses actually came back online trying to get their office spaces together. So what that shows us is that while the working from home is very critical and it's going to be a big part of the future, there is a sense of human connection that people still crave, right? There's going to be a sense of collaboration that people are still going to need. And it's all going to be depending on the type of industry that you're in, right? Some industries will be able to work remotely a lot better than others, right? So right now, the key thing that we wanted to do during this period is we launched a new service. And I like what you said about diversification, but you have to do it within the realm of what you're familiar with. So we diversified in the sense that we launched an online service called Design Matchup. And what this does is it's our way to ensure that a lot of freelancers now have opportunities to actually work on some of the projects that we work on. So we've taken the space finish model and we've kind of repackaged it to an online service that freelancers across the world can work with different clients in Nigeria to help them design their spaces. And that has been a very interesting product to launch in this crisis. And we've seen that actually spike up clients' interest because one, it's now a lot more affordable. Two, you're not restricted by the physical logistics that one would otherwise be restricted by. So that's an example of how we were able to stay relevant and add value to our clients during this period. Another thing that I also realized that is also critical is, during this time, there is a lot of people are really encouraged to spring into action, but you have to be very careful as to what path you decide to take, right? I know that cash is king and queen. Without cash, you can have all the ideas in the world, but everything can come to a grinding halt, right? So obviously, ensuring that our cash flow was secure and ensuring we had a runway of at least 12 months. Right now, not every business has that opportunity. But one thing that we realized is that we spent a lot of time being very defensive, like trying to just protect our cash flow. And we realized that we were not moving. For the first couple of months, we were just in this very defensive stance because that's what everyone was doing. And then there was a period where we said, look, there could be a world where COVID never goes away, guys. That could be a reality that we might all have to contend with. And the more we started to ease into these things, we started to become a lot more emboldened to begin to actually invest in trying to get additional resources as opposed to taking a defensive stance. And now we've started to see ourselves begin to make some more progress in the work that we're doing in the past, right? So my key learning here is always best to observe what's going on, try to learn from other people's situations. So just looking at what's happening in Europe and in China has been very insightful to us. We're in a period where everyone is talking about going back to work. There's been a lot of experiments that have been done. Some have failed, some have worked. So we are trying to do the things that have worked and bring it to this part of the world. And trying to be very optimistic about the situation and being a realist, especially with your team. One of the key things that we realized was that at first the teams are very happy to work from home, right? But after a while, working from home in the lockdown is not as glamorous as we all thought it was going to be, right? There is the fear of catching the virus. There's the healthcare aspect. There's also the mental aspects. There's the loneliness, there's depression that kicks in. People don't have the best work from home environments. People are working with families. So as a company, we learned to begin to invest in ensuring that our employees were good. Our employees were good. Their mental health was good. Try to figure out how we can engage them from that standpoint. And we realized that while we learned how to work remotely very well, we are also not very knowledgeable in how to maintain the right culture and spirit, because it's not an easy thing to do virtually, right? So as you charge forward, trying to be very bullish in not letting this pandemic hold you back, also don't forget your workforce, because you 100%. Can't really do anything without them. So those are the key learnings from my end.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, they're very important. I want to touch on a couple of things, but quickly, now that we've got Sola back, when we're talking about diversifying and, one's business, because obviously we spoke, Aduke spoke about the airline business and the way her business was diversified in a way that it could at least cushion, some of the impact of the lockdown and the pandemic. I think you're also in a very similar position? Because like I mentioned earlier, you're running this incredible business. You know, you're one of the biggest clothing t-shirt manufacturers in Nigeria. And then all of a sudden, you know, you've probably seen your business sort of experience a big decrease in demand, but you've quickly diversified into now producing masks. And you're like one of the biggest mask producers in the country as well. So do you want to just pandemic and how your business has evolved, and maybe we can learn some of these lessons as well.
All right, hi, thanks for having me here. I listened to the first panelist and listened to everyone else as well. My case is slightly different from everybody else. So yes, when the lockdown was announced, my major concern was for the welfare of my staff, because they usually are paid either weekly, and I know that they all depend on the daily money that they will be paid. So lockdown that some few days. So some few days into the initial lockdown, we got a call, we were given a permit, we had to open. And I'm telling you, we have been working. Right now I'm at work, we have not been at home, we have been working. So what we had to do was pick up every single staff, have them tested, scanned, and checked, and feed them. And they're all at the factory, staying there to produce. So produce from not just masks to scrubs, to PPE, the coveralls, and to so many other things that people usually use to import, sorry. So we do a lot of contract manufacturing, and that has increased. So even though people seem to, so I won't really call it that, we had to diversify. We actually just increased our capacity, and we're now operating at full capacity. So we work 24 hours. We had to be doing day and night production. And housing and has been a major cost. So yes, so many things have changed. We have to change our model. And in a way, it now suits us all what we have been preparing for. So we had prepared that, we don't, even though I'm a fashion designer by training, I don't do one-on-one garments. We produce large quantities. Hello, I'm not sure if you can still hear me. Can you still hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
So we've always produced in large quantities. We produce for other designers. So what just changed is that instead of the designers, now we have more corporate clients, which is what we've always wanted. So it was when those international companies would not even look our way, we had to make do with the designers we were making clothes. Now that they took, when I say they, I mean the companies can't bring in their shirts, their staff uniforms. I have been shocked by the caliber of companies that have called saying, we heard you can do this number, we need so XYZ number of uniforms, and we need it in 3 days. So we have been busy working. That's it. But the major thing is we had to add, we used to house them, but now we had to house everyone and keep feeding everyone. And paying, now we pay almost on a daily basis because they need to send their money to their parents, their families, and all that.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that story is an incredible one, and I applaud you for just the dynamism in your business, that you could quickly adapt and really sort of thrive really in what is the new normal. I think at that point, the point you raised is quite connected to what Aduke talked about as well earlier, when she talked about them having to think about sourcing things locally, right? And not just using very valuable foreign exchange for things that quite possibly they could connect with local manufacturers and grow both, right? So again, I think this is a really strong theme coming across in terms of strategic partnerships, looking local, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for this discussion. We need to kind of really move on. I could go on for days and days and days, but we need to move on to the next session. And you know, they're already screaming at me. Maybe we take one question. So someone has asked a question from the crowd. Favor asked, how do we deal with competition in these times? Now I know it's a very broad question, but Favor has asked it, and she's lucky enough. We're gonna all try and take a stab at answering the question. So guys, we have 30 seconds. 30 seconds to answer Favors. I'm gonna start with Aduke.
All right then.
30
Hello?
seconds. Yep, you're there.
I have a very dramatic answer to that. Cooperate with competition. Thank you. Form strategic.
I love that response. So cooperate with competition. And to you, Remi, what would your response be to Favor?
Well, so I agree with the corporate stance because I think that in these times you need to figure out who your partners are, but also in a situation where we cannot partner up, I think that you just need to just focus on what is key for you. Everyone is running a different race, right? You really need to look at what your goals are, and think about who your target audience and who your customers are. And at this point, be the best version of yourself in providing value for your customers. Your customers are really going to remember how you acted in this period. So focus on adding immense value. And that is the key thing that you're doing at this point in time. Because at the end of the day, this period is going to go, it's going to come, it's going to pass. And it's those who have added the immense value to the customer base that are going to still stand. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic, Remi. And Nnenna?
I think it's really just to follow up Remi said. I think that if you can't cooperate, the best is to differentiate and to stay really close to your customers and to understand what they need now. Somebody talked about it at the beginning. If you have things that you're offering, maybe it's not the full gamut. I think just like what Sola did, but not the full gamut of what you do that's relevant right now. So I think differentiation and relevance are really going to be the two things that will help you manage in a competitive space.
Fantastic. Sola, and you? So Favor has asked us.
Yeah, of course, no. First of all,
very
you try
broad
to
question.
collaborate, and if you cannot collaborate, you should also think on using technology, leveraging on technology. So for me, technology and of course quality is what she said. Look for what your customers need, and if you keep focusing on I want to beat my competition, you will lose track of your own goal. So just look at how to best serve your clients, and then you'll be ahead before you know it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for that, guys. And at this point, I'm going to sort of ask for Remi, Nnenna, and Aduke. Can you stay on? Because we're going to bring on the designers, the two finalists, and yeah, we're going to sort of start the whole program in terms of how we reveal who the 1 million naira winner is. But before we do that, Sola, thank you so much for making the time. You were I'm telling you, it was incredible, right? She does definitely deserve a big round of applause from all of us. She's at work, still working, and made the time to sort of bless us with her advice and her wisdom. So thank you so much for that, Sola.
Yeah, I just want to I want to say something. I just want to quickly add something. I don't know if you don't mind. So talking about looking inward. So one thing we had to do was look for the local manufacturers of raw materials. So we had to go and look for Nigerian companies that make the textiles we need, rather than how before we had to import everything in. So we went to them, showed them the quality we want, the product we want, and we pushed them. I was on their neck every day. So they produced the type of what I wanted, and that's what we're able to use. And everyone in my industry is also able to buy from them. So I just wanted to chip that in.
Fantastic addition. I think, across the board, talk about vertical and horizontal integration. I think every single one of these is going to play very well and very positively for local producers. So that's incredible. Thank you so much for that, Sola. We really appreciate that. Okay, so guys, we're going to start. Bye. To see you. So yeah, so we're going to move on. But before I guess we move on to bring on the designers and we reveal who the winner is, we actually also want to tell you a little bit about the Hive and tell you a little bit about what we've got planned in terms of this incredible new platform that we're connecting creators with. I don't talk too much. I'm just going to play this video so that you get to have a view of what we've got in store.
You have an idea or business. You want to change the world or just your world or both. Great. Now you need to create stuff to support your idea or business. Why not get the best local creators to build this for you in a simple, risk-free way? The Hive offers a community of skilled designers and creators. Just click, answer a few questions, and in minutes you are matched with the right creative collaborator who will make the content you require at a pre-agreed price. Wow, now that was easy. But it doesn't end there. You need a way to get to the right audience and make sure you don't lose your shirt doing so. Why not get help from experts that can ensure you have the right tactics and wisely guide your spending? Influencers can also help push the content to their following. The Hive can help you with that too. Just click and your message is out there in a way you can measure, and that delivers. Creatives, influencers, and experts join the Hive looking for interesting problems they're uniquely positioned to solve. Join us and let us connect you with opportunities so we can together build brands that will build Africa. The Hive. Visit www.thehive.com.ng.
So, the Hive. So that's what the Hive is in a nutshell. And very, very soon, you'll get to have an opportunity to be able to log onto the website and be connected to creators who can basically answer your brief. Okay, so the excitement. I can see that everybody's got, well, maybe not everybody. I am certainly very excited to reveal who this incredible winner is. And in true building up the tension manner, we're going to invite back on FOP. So we're going to invite Foluso Phillips back onto the stage. We're going to invite him back onto the stage to give us some additional words. But while we're doing that, I would actually ask Aduke, because I know that Aduke, you were there at the time when we were considering all these incredible submissions from these designers. And we were left with two great designers. And I think these guys did a really, really good job. I think they did a great job. I think in terms of the number of votes we got, we got thousands of votes. These two finalists ended up generating more than 10,000 votes each. So each of them had over 10,000 votes. And we had thousands of people voting, and I think it was just absolutely remarkable. So these guys really deserve to be in this final spot. And as one of the judges that was there, I just wanted to sort of, if you had any thoughts about the finalists, or just if you wanted to share anything with us before we hand back to FOP to sort of give us a little bit of a summary, and then we go into announcing the winner. I'm stringing it, trust me. It's 1 million naira now. It's not small, so we have to string it a little bit. All right.
Okay, I get first. Yeah, thank you very much, Dio. I'm particularly excited about the finalists for. I don't know. Are their names public now?
Names are public. It's always been public on the website. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Mabel Couture and Teal Consulting.